Now, a group of leading business organisations in the United States has taken the unusual step of issuing a statement opposing the Australian government's plans to introduce plain packaging for cigarettes. As you know, Minister Oxon will be joining us on the program later. But these business groups say that the laws would breach many of Australia's international trade obligations. Dr. Cal Cohen is the president of the Emergency Committee for American Trade. He joins us now from Washington. Look, thanks so much for joining us, Cal Cohen. This is a unique group of organisations that have come together to issue this statement. The US Chamber of Commerce, the National Association of Manufacturers, the US States Council for International Business, the National Foreign Trade Council, and many more, and yours. Why are you doing it?
We are firm supporters of regulations, Virginia, that will lead to a reduction in the incidence of smoking, especially among youth. However, the approach that seems to be the basis of the Australian initiative fails on two counts in our view. One, it's violative of commitments that the government of Australia has freely entered with its trading partners with regard to the protection of intellectual property. And second, and more serious, is there is no scientific basis that the use of plain packaging will reduce the incidence of smoking. The analysis that most experts have subscribed to is it will reduce the price of tobacco products. By reducing the price, will increase the ability of more people to purchase the product, and the net result will be a rise in the incidence of smoking. The international commitments that have been entered into by Australia indicate that when you're trying to achieve a legitimate objective, one chooses the least trade restrictive measure possible to achieve the legitimate objective. Mm-hmm. The scientific basis indicates that the legitimate objective will not be achieved, and the evidence is that there are scientifically proved ways of reducing smoking, education campaigns just being one good example.
Let's leave those two issues as separate for the moment, and I do want to get to both of them. But the first one, the violation of the agreements that Australia might be in with its international trading partners. How exactly might they be breached? Are you talking here solely about intellectual property?
We're focusing in the first case on intellectual property under the TRIPS, so-called TRIPS agreement on intellectual property that was negotiated under the WTO, the World Trade Organization. Yes. A trademark should not be unjustifiably encumbered in such a way to prevent the identification of one product versus another product. What that would result in the case of plain packaging, is quite frankly an increase in counterfeit products, which again will result in a higher incidence of smoking. The counterfeit products are priced below market.
But one brand won't be given prominence over another. All brand names, all trademarks and the like will all be obscured. So while there might be some restriction on that, there certainly won't be one elevated above the other.
I don't think that is the issue, Virginia. What I would say is once you don't have the ability to distinguish one product from another, what you will find is you will have more contraband and more counterfeit product in your market. The most frequently counterfeited product in the world today is tobacco products. It's one of the reasons why many governments have second thoughts about the use of plain packaging. It's very easy to copy a package that doesn't have the distinguishing trademarks that set one product apart from another.
Cal Cohen, apart from this statement, and a very strong statement it is your group of organisations planning to take any further and stronger action? Are you planning to launch some action with the WTO?
It would not be our part to take an action under the WTO, but other governments can take action. And I'd give you one example of why this approach is not the right approach to take. It has not been so long ago that the government of Australia indicated its reserves and its concern with a proposal analogous to plain packaging being contemplated by the government of Thailand, which wants to use some expanded coverage of packagings having to do with alcoholic beverages that minimize the identification of trademark. Australia objected to it. And quite frankly, I think this is another problem, which I would make the third problem with the plain packaging proposal. What would be tried in the case of tobacco in the case of Australia would soon move into other areas. There are some who want to use the equivalent of plain packaging on alcoholic beverages. Others want to use it on confectionery products. Others want to use it on products with high fat. And we believe that this slippery slope is not one that should be encouraged by the use of plain packaging.
Okay, so it's a dangerous precedent according to your organisation. Can I just ask though, given the groups that are part of this joint statement, the Chamber of Commerce, the National Association of Manufacturers, it follows logically, it seems to me, that perhaps the tobacco companies might be involved in, have some connection with or some funding arrangement with some of those organisations who are party to this statement. Is that true?
I would tell you that not only are tobacco companies represented by our groups, as well confectionery companies, alcoholic beverage companies, companies that produce fast food, all the companies are involved because they see this as an attack